Hi there. Welcome to how to make $15,000 every 15 minutes. And what I wanted to talk about were the 4 things to do that put you in the direction of this. And all aimed at a giant return in 15 minutes. Now I plan on spending 45 minutes here covering things to go through. And so, and that's $45,000. And so the first thing that I want to do is double productivity. So practice listening to your media at double the speed. This is YouTube's, this is replays, this is meditations. Now, and audiobooks. Now, probably not your favorite music, yeah, and not stuff that you do for enjoyment. But anywhere else you may watch videos, you may be picking up content or information, lectures, recordings, listen to it at a higher speed. Now, you'll go to 2 times speed and it will be chaos. Your mind will adjust, your hearing will improve. You're improving your skill. So listen to something at twice the speed and then go through it at 1.5. And then just start working at 1.5. Maybe you need to go to 1.25 and then just look at improving it, staggering it, and increasing it. And so in that was just the first few minutes of offering you a tip around how to improve your listening. And what this is, what I'm working here today is all about listening to your body, listening to yourself, listening to your thoughts and your emotions, and listening to these aspects that are on autopilot. And they are controlling a big majority of our life. And so that was the first thing of 4 aimed at 15,000 in 15 minutes so that you can do it every 15 minutes. Now just notice how that feels. When you first saw it, what was your first reaction? Most people say, not me, I can't do that. There's a fear to it, and this is your body says that can't be possible. So you have a civil war, is that you want it, and there's a part of you that doesn't want it. This creates oscillation, stuck in our creations and in our lives. And these become, like, we get comfortable, they work, we survive, we get away from the troubles, the world, and we create patterns as a child that helped us get out of the situations. And we still run these patterns today because they are meant to keep you safe, yet we are so unaware of them. That is the challenge, is how to recognize these sabotaging patterns so that you can teach your body that it's safe to have a true choice, which is really what you want. And this is where the civil war is. You have what you want and why you can't have it. And what we can do is there's a process to teach you how to recode, rewire the past. What we're doing is just like there's an aspect of you that was present while all these decisions were being made. And when you connect through the emotion, you can connect to the information, release that emotion, keep whatever information you need. And that pattern, that fear, that emotion will no longer be triggered as thinking like a strength. Because of the strength, it diminishes. Sometimes we can't write them all at one time. We have to go after them a couple of times. But those are the four. And so the four things that we're covering here today is one, listen to this. If you're listening to this recode, this recording, listen to it at double the speed. At least practice increasing your speed so that you can listen to audiobooks at 2.5 times. And the question is, what would you do with that increased time, with that increased productivity? And just notice that you said, oh, I can't do that, and prove that you can do it. Then become that person that listens to audiobooks at twice the speed. Recognize your sabotaging patterns. There's 6 of them that we have and we carry around with us. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm insignificant. I don't belong. I'm not capable. I'm not perfect. These are underlying, which means we have ones that are right at the surface that we avoid, that keep us from going to these deeper core fears that we have. And they're just there to keep us safe. But when we recognize them, we can begin to change them and change the situation for them. And how to change them is to go for true choices, because when we put in true choices, the resistance of why we can't have that comes up onto the playing field. And then we use an aspect of you that remembers when that was there, remembers the emotion, and helps heal, release that emotion so that the information stays. And that is called a recode process. And this is all around teaching your body to be in alignment with what you want and take the action for it. Teaching your body that it's safe to have what you want. And so will your body let you have $15,000 in 15 minutes? It's either yes, I can have that, or no, I can't. And just work with your body until you get like a resistance is no, I can't have that. Oh, I want it. And then you asked, well, do you really want it? Maybe it's a no. You really don't want it. And that's completely fine. Find something that you do want, that you do have resistance to. Sometimes it's safe. Sometimes it's, for me, it's, I'm a prover. I need to prove. And so it's like, this is the challenge. This is to prove it. It's like way out there. And it's like, when you prove that, it's $120 million a year. It's like, that is much more than I'd ever need. But it's the challenge for me, my intention to go after that. And then we look at our sabotaging patterns, and safety is one of them, because that is what we're survived to do. And from safety comes fear, and fear of failure. And so these are big ones. There's a fear of death. There's a fear of dying. There's a fear of threats that are out in the environment. And we respond to them 5 times more than their opposites, than their co-parts, which is love, which is joy. And so this keeps us in a sabotaging, fear is not a sabotaging pattern. It is a limiting pattern. which limits. Part of fear is fear of failing, fear of judging, fear of mistrust, fear of being kicked out, fear of not being accepted. See, these go really deep, these fears of not belonging, not being valid, not wanting to be seen as being insignificant, not perfect, not good enough. And so these patterns we learn as a child to cope with traumatic or dramatic or impressionable histories, past traumas, moments of our childhood where it wasn't going the way we wanted it to. And this is how we coped with it. And this coping, this mechanism, this survival is what we keep in place as adults. And when we begin to see the present moment, we can see that what our starting position is. And what I call a starting position is to your thought and your feeling in the moment of now. What are you feeling and what is the thought? See, I call this true choices. What would you just love to have? What would you just go for? And this awakens our inner child. This awakens our superconscious. It awakens our creativity. It says, what would you just love to produce, create, be in the world? And we deep down know we're not living our true, authentic self. We are living negative visions. We are living what we think we need to be to get what we want. And this is a fundamental pattern of giving our power away, which means we are not in a true choice. And working to understand a true choice is just because you would love it, not to prove, not to validate, not to so that you can judge, which is what we did as a child, but rather to just go for what you want. See, survival and evolution is not a perfect system, so it's evolved with some hiccups. And then the last one is with these hiccups, it's between acting and doing, thinking and wanting and behaving. And it's like our body just doesn't want to react, perform for what we want. And so that's where the recode comes in. It is connecting with an aspect of you that was present while all these memories, these emotions were created. And it's in the direction of the creation of the joy and what we want, that we can remove this fear, we can remove this scarcity, we can remove the choice, we can remove the emotion so that we can just see that there was more choices. And be gentle, be forgiving of a child making a choice in the moment, the best choice they could make. And to recognize that these choices have just been passed down, part of our evolving to survive. But it still comes with civil war. It still comes with challenges. And it still comes with a system that's in chaos, complex, and here to be made simple and easy. And so that was like the first 15 minutes is an overview of how to listen to things faster, yeah, and to give an idea around what things to listen to. And so now I want to like notice our sabotaging patterns and use the $15,000 in 15 minutes as an exercise for this. So when you hear it, what is it that you want from this? What can you allow? There's a part of you that would be excited to know how to do this. There's a part of you that wants to know this. There's a part of you that says, we can do this. You're worth that. And just as soon as you think that, there's a part that says you're not. You haven't done it. Who are you fooling? You don't believe that. That is so far out there. You'd have to do this. And Your pattern jumps in to keep you safe, whatever your choice is. All we're doing is to be aware of this choice so that we can choose. Because it is just a pattern that's playing over and over that may not be useful anymore. Because most of it is like why we don't have what we want is that we're not allowed ourselves to experience it. Most of us, like my pattern was that when I get something, so when I get something from out there, then I'll be good enough. And when I'm good enough, then I can be happy. So I had to have things out there work out in order to get what I wanted. And that's scary on two ways. One, it's like it never will happen. And two, I'm giving my choice away. This is what we do. And when we know we're in a limiting pattern is because we're giving fear, we're giving something, we're giving it away. And yes, there are times to be fearful, which is how we've survived to evolve and evolved to survive. But today is like we create stress and tension around fear of failure. And that keeps us, that limits us from our creativity, from being creative, from being our true selves. And so we'll play these patterns that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't belong, I'm insignificant, and I'm not perfect or capable. And these we will tell ourselves automatically something about this that we can put a pause on and change how they show up. And the first place to change and see them is around a true choice. And so that's why I was working with a true choice is like, if you don't feel the 15,000 in 15 minutes, if you don't feel like 15,000 is a true choice for you, $15,000, if you do that, that's not a true choice, then what would you do with that money? Like if money wasn't an issue, what would you do? And this is what I'm looking for is like, what would you create in the world? This becomes your true choice just because you'd love to do it. So often we attach so much of our identity of being successful in the world to this that fear plays a significant part in this. So this is just to acknowledge the sabotaging patterns and going for a true choice rather than being in a negative vision or that something completes you before you can have what you want. So you know you're in a true choice when you would just love to have it. Not for any reason, not to prove anything, not to have anyone say anything about you, and not to complete you. Just because. And that sounds so much easier than it really is, because we've been conditioned to think what we want will finally get us there. And it's just a backwards way of thinking about it. But doesn't mean that we're not conditioned. Our body is not in that autopilot, in that safety mode, which becomes our default. And that becomes really hard to change. So you think about New Year's resolution change, it's like that is very difficult. Well, when we can release this emotion, see other possibilities, and use the aspect of us in a recode process, we can shift these emotions, releasing them, and then knowing that there's new choices to be made. This is how we rewire the past. This is how we rewrite our past. We happened the way that it did, but without the emotional charge, you can see new possibilities into the future. And this changes what you can create. And so the recode is the fastest way that it assists in releasing these trapped emotions so that new actions can be taken. We spend a lifetime trying to change. And this is the fastest that I know. Because it is all about teaching your body that it can have what it wants, that it's safe. And we're just under our automatic programming from one of our memories, from our earlier memories, our reptilian memory, around our emotions. And what I say is like to put our sabotaging patterns show up as we have 6,000 thoughts a day and only 2 emotions, positive or negative. And when we can begin to incorporate our language between the positive and negatives, there's a lot that goes on there that we're not really aware of. And we can begin to see is like, oh, do I want to be in this negative pattern or do I choose a positive pattern? If I choose a positive pattern, I'm going to go for what I want because that is in the language, just has the emotion of the future and what we want. It's optimistic. And so what we do is we change our language, we change our habits, we change our thinking, we change our biology, we change our stories, and then that has us in different actions. New possibilities are capable. We're moving the sabotaging patterns that are 80% of the replaying over and over and over and replace that with positive. That is a huge, significant gain. That is a 400% return, replace all of those. Now, from experience, they're not easy to replace. They're not simple. It sounds very simple, very easy. That takes work. It takes conscious effort. It takes energy. And so that's part of the process. And see, we all are on a human journey that we were, there's 3 memories that to make us today who we are. I'll start with our earliest memory, memory 1, which is I call our superconscious. This is your intuition. This is source. This is all information around humanity's history. And your family has a history that has allowed it to survive, that keeps getting passed on as silent instructions, part of the humanity's field of information. And you came from your mother and your father's, and you are yours, part of the family. And as this aspect of you is informing you, like setting out your creation from the family, building who you are. And this is right at the moment of conception. So really you are before conception and part of conception. And the conception, this aspect is guiding your development of your body. And then around the 3rd trimester, memory 2 shows up, and this is part of your automatic. This is your unconscious, is the words that I'll use here. Other people call it your subconscious. This is part of your behaviors. It's the autopilot. It's the programming. It's the reaction part of you. And this is trained, and it's also the emotion. So what people say is like, this is 95% of keeping you alive. And it's on autopilot. That's beautiful. And then the 3rd memory shows up about age 4, which is our thinking mind, our rational mind. And this is also called our ego and our identity. And this part takes over our lives, and we begin to live as through the identity, through the ego of what we think and who we need to be successful in the world, all by moving farther and farther away from the child. Some of us do, some of us come back, some of us don't find it, some of us do. And that's the journey that we go on. And so as a child comes in through learning, like with the moments that it did not get what it wanted, how to cope with those, we began and created our own patterns. These patterns were partly passed down. They were picked up from the family structures. And then we evolved them as like, this is how we could cope with the moments and the situations. And this becomes our habits. And we are blind to them, but other people can see them. And so these 3 memories all have different concerns that they're taking care of. The superconscious, the memory 1, is there for creation, enjoy, for love, like helping. Memory 2 is to be safe, anything to be safe, and it only looks from the past. It only has a memory, only from the experience. And memory 3, the self-conscious, wants to experience the world, but doesn't believe in memory 1 because it's never experienced it. It's always been there. And memory 3, self-conscious, cannot talk and change the automatics, the autopilot, very easily, very well, but the memory 1 can, because that it was the original instructions. So we can change instructions from that moment because memory 1 was present, was always there, always been there, and remembers everything that's there. And we can just remove it and replace it. And that's called the recode process. This is a creator's code. It's being in a certain structure. It's to get in a structure of what is it that you want. And so since we've been working with 15,000 every 15 minutes, it's like, what would you want from that? If you could get $15,000 every 15 minutes, $120 million this year, what would that feel like? Is this easy to do? If not, no wonder you can't have it. And just get used to this feeling, know this feeling, so that you can choose to change it if you want. What would you have to do? There's always a way to make it, to have it. And as soon as you find one way, you can see all sorts of other ways. And this, when you see that you're worth $15,000 every 15 minutes, what would be your project? What would you put in there? What would you just love to do? See, it's not the money that's important, it's your attention. So true choice, what would you just love to have? 120 million, a business, help, friends, a community, a tribe. Going for $15,000 every 15 minutes. What is yours? This is just mine. So it's like, what would you just love? And what would you be doing? How would you know you have it? I think this is the second piece that we miss in today's culture, in today's teachings, is that to step into the result is to experience it. So when we can experience it in our mind, what it would be like, what we would see when we're there, then we teach ourselves that it's safe to have it. Because even though we want it, we know that we can be afraid to have it because it is a change. And this is part of our conditioning. And so the other step 2 is like, what do you want and what would it feel like? How would you know you had it? What would you be doing? What would people be saying? Most people feel this up in their heart. Feel joy with it. You're being active, you're living. And it's like, to be that, see it's safe to have that, to be that. And we just bring up all the resistance that says why we can't have it. This is teaching ourselves a new starting position. And the first 2 steps of a 5-step strategy. It's just setting up the structure, getting you in a structure that we can be in a creative structure and recode. And so that's, what do you want? What would it be like? And now what we want to do is just come to the moment of now, to this moment, to the truth of it now, and allowing the truth to be just whatever you want it to be, just as it is. We tend to judge here, and this tends to be our starting position. But if we can just allow the truth, that it is stressful, that it is not going like we want. And just think about what has been the last 3 days. And if you think about what positive, negative, or neutral would you describe the majority of your 3 days? Just allow it to be true. Name it, label it. This is what it's been like. And just notice the difference between what you want and what you have. And allow that resistance to come up. You might, and this is where you work as you unpack this here is we're going to work to get to a core sabotaging belief. It's like you can just say, it's like, oh, I can see that, oh, I'm just not good enough. I'm just not worthy. And you'll unpack one for you. And this becomes your dominant. This one becomes the one that you can pay attention to. This is your sabotaging pattern. So why can't you have this money? Why can't you make offers that are worth 15,000 every 15 minutes? Just notice what comes up. Notice where you are. What are you saying? What are others saying? What do you believe about yourself? What judgments are others saying about you? What are you justifying, deflecting, defending? What are you afraid they will see? What they'll say? What could you never accept? What could you never allow? Yeah, this is just the truth. Superconscious, just see this pattern, see it playing, whether it's this lifetime, earlier lifetimes passed on through the family generation there. Superconscious, just tag and treat this all the way through the timeline. Releasing that through that, there's that fear that it's not safe, that fear that's scared. It's not safe. So we're going to just feel that in that stomach and all of that that's been tied up into it. It's been resisting it. I can't be seen. I'm not worthy. Just not good enough. Just release that. Settle it. Drain it out. Feel the space in the room. Feel the energy flow through. And what do you want? What do you see now? What do you believe now? Superconscious just do a massive change history. releasing that resistance, grounding it back in the matrix, just the information, keeping and allowing that pattern, that resistance, that sabotaging pattern to be washed away. Just notice what's there. Now, if you think about 15,000 every 15 minutes, what could you do? And as you see one opportunity, just see many. What's the obvious action? Just allow that. I know it's new, it's different, yet familiar. This is how you communicated as a young child. Just connecting back to it, knowing that it's safe. Come on back. That is the recode. Put in the chat what you noticed, what's different. What did you learn about your sabotaging pattern? What did you let go of? And what does that mean? Thank you for being on this session. What is your resistance to 15,000 every 15 minutes now? What is your project? What would you do? What you just want to bring in as a creation? What was your sabotaging pattern? Is it, I'm not good enough? That you're not worthy? That you have to be perfect? Try and identify yours this week. I have follow-up videos that keep you on track, that get you in a powerful structure, a creative structure, so that you can live your true choices. You can teach yourself that it's safe, and you can teach your body to go for it. And with the recode, it's the fastest way to align your body, rewriting your past so that you can go for what you want. You can create new actions, and you can create new actions without limitations, which means you see that completely different, whole other ways. And yet we're still blind to so much of it. It's my pleasure to share with you the recode process, the creative structure, intuition, and truth. Truth that you're worth much more than $15,000 every 15 minutes, and it's the 15 minutes that matters. What are you creating with your 15 minutes? With your doubled productivity? What are you creating? What are you listening to? Is it in the direction of increasing your capacities, increasing your capabilities, allowing you to do what you do best? Until next time, have a great week.